Hey ho everyone, and welcome to this in-depth recap of RBY Ubers. With me today is Eledyr.
Hello, everyone.
And also me as always. So we are going to go over a few games of RBY Ubers, some of this week and maybe also some from the previous week. And so, are there any things you would like to maybe say about the tier before we go into the first replay?
Well, the I think the RBY Ubers tier is mostly something people tend to not know, and it's something that people tend to dislike because they don't know it in depth. So I'm really happy to actually speak about this tier because I really want to uh, put a bit to give a bit of explanations on how this tier is played.
Alright.
So the first thing I want to, there's a first thing to say. So in RBY, so the first thing you can see, contrary to other gens, other more recent gens, is that there is no team preview. So you start with a lead, which is your first Pokemon, and you don't see the rest of the team. So there's a lot of, you know. Yeah, there's a lot of things you need to quickly understand how your team built, your opponent built his team, and usually with the starters are either heavy hitters like Tauros, which is really a force to weaken in RBY is the best Pokemon in the OU, but it's also very good in Ubers because it's very hard.
Yeah.
Um, and on the opposite side, in the SaDiSTiCNarwhal side, Executor is actually a sleeper, which means that it induces sleep because sleep is in RBY is very good. It can last between 1 and 5 turns, 6 turns. Sorry. So yeah, basically putting something to sleep is equal to kill it in most situations. So you really want to spread sleep as fast as possible to basically play in 5 versus 6.
You also don't get to attack on the turn you wake up, if I remember that correctly, right?
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. So the sleep actually lasts between 0 and 5 turns, and the turns you wake up, you can't act. So effectively, it lasts between 1 and 6 turns. This is what I meant when I said 1 and 6 turns.
Also, maybe one thing I should mention because it's like a lot of mechanics we now take for granted in current gens or even some of the previous gens. Here are no items, no entry hazards.
Yeah.
The special attack and special defense are still combined into one stat.
Mm.
Attacks still are, whether an attack is special or physical, is still based on the type. So
And there's also specific things like the crit rate of each monster is based on their speed stats. And due to Tauros being very fast in RBY, it has approximately 20% crit rates. So this is why Tauros actually used Hyper Beam on turn one. It tried to catch a critical hit, which can actually, when it KO, Executor. And one specific things about Hyper Beam in which is specific to Gen 1 is that Hyper Beam has no recharge turn if it KOs an opposing mon. So this is why Torchic tried to Hyper Beam on turn 1, because it tried to catch a critical hit which would have KO'd Executor, so it would have been a free KO with no drawbacks. So you can click play. But the thing is, it didn't catch the KO. And one thing that must be mentioned, can you pause it? So yeah, it's mentioned in the replay. In Gen 1, if you click Hyper Beam and you have to recharge, the sleep will automatically be will automatically connect. So yeah, even though Sleep Powder only has 75% accuracy, in the specific setup, it always connects.
Yeah. I believe Hyper Beam was also like the only real option there because of Sleep Claws being preventative of any other Pokemon being put to sleep here. So attacking here and hoping for the crit was pretty much the only option because every other Pokemon would have been put to sleep on Switch, and if I understand that correctly.
Yeah.
Alright.
So one thing that should be mentioned with Exeggutor is that it has a few options. We already know that he has Sleep Powder. He also has Psychic. One thing that Exeggutor has, and which is very important, is Explosion, which is very strong in Gen 1, because it has the defense of the opposing Pokemon when it's used.
So it's
Even though it
basically
has
500 base power move.
yeah,
Very
it
strong.
has 170 base base power
Oh, okay.
in Gen 1. So it's slightly stronger than Hyper Beam, based purely on the base power, but due to the mechanic of having the defense, it's much stronger.
Yeah, 340 then.
And introducing Mewtwo. Mewtwo is definitely the best Pokemon in that tier. It has amazing stats on the board, amazing coverage, basically no bad stats. So yeah, Mewtwo can do everything and it does everything good. So the play now for SaDiSTiCNarwhal is to try to know what moveset this Mewtwo have, what moveset Torchic have on Mewtwo. So it goes on Chansey to get an information, and we see that he has Ice Beam, so it would have KO Exeggutor at this range. So definitely Chansey was a good play from SaDiSTiCNarwhal because now it knows Mewtwo can definitely KO this Exeggutor because it can be played with Psychic and Thunderbolt.
Yeah, so you also always hear these stories about the Mewtwo mirrors and the Ice Beam being very scary. Is there
Yeah.
any difference to the freeze mechanics in Generation 1?
Yeah, indeed. In Generation 1, freeze is permanent, so freezing an opposing Pokemon is basically a KO because yeah, it can't ever act again except if it takes a fire type attack or if Ace is used and both of these moves are bad.
So being frozen is even worse than
Equal
having a
to
Pokemon
being
KO'd, right?
KO. Yeah. So yeah, there's a few turns of scouting here. This is why Chansey is sent. So Chansey has a Sing, which which was nicely catched by Exeggutor. Or can you pause now? Okay, so no, so Rhydon here. Rhydon is a very threatening Pokemon. It's one of the strongest Pokemon in the first generation. Actually, I think Rhydon has the highest base attack in the game among all the Pokemon in the generation. So it hits very hard and it's packed with amazing coverage in Earthquake, which is very hard to switch into. For instance, Chansey is 2-hit KO by Earthquake, and Mewtwo is 3-hit KO'd by Earthquake. So it's a Pokemon that it's very hard to to check overall. So, and here it is amazingly put on the field because Chansey has revealed seismic toss, which means it's usually not able to hit for big damage the Rhydon. And it reveals Thunder Wave, so it means that its only attacking move is Seismic Toss, which does pitiful damage on the Rhydon.
Yeah.
So now Mew is revealed. Mew is also the second best Pokemon in the tier. Mew is usually seen as a setup sweeper because it's one of the few Pokemon with access to the move Swords Dance, which is extremely good, even in RBY. And it's because it can learn every move in the game. It's very hard to, pivot into and check what it does because it can do basically a lot of things, and all Mew's sets are different and needs different checks.
So is Mew always run with a physically offensive set? I mean, it has access to so much stuff that I could think it would also run supportive sets, but then again, the opportunity cost is probably too high for that.
There are very few sets of Mew which are sets used with Reflect, Transform, and which are basically some kind of stall sets. But they are very rare. Most Mew sets are oriented as sub-sweepers and wall breakers in general, because Mew is commonly used as a wall breaker, something that will be used to break the opposing Mewtwo, break the opposing Mew, etc. So Slowbro is revealed. Slowbro is actually also very good in Ubers because, like I said, Mewtwo has the option to run Psychic, Thunderbolt, and Ice Beam. But so it means that if it doesn't run Thunderbolt, it can definitely wall Mewtwo and be a very annoying presence for Mewtwo.
Yeah. So from this point, can we already tell which how the teams are going to look? I would assume the team of Narwhal is going to have Mew and Mewtwo as well, but
Yeah.
for Torchic,
At this point, the whole team of SaDiSTiCNarwhal is revealed because Mew and Mewtwo are automatically played in Ubers. There's absolutely no reason to not use them. They are so good that you must use them. So there's still, questions about which Pokemons Torchic can use now. There's still 2 Pokemon that it can use, and it can be a lot of different options. I'm not going to say much more because I think they will be revealed soon. But yeah.
parallelization works like up to generation 5 here, right?
So the paralysis is pretty equivalent to what it is in more recent gens. The major difference is that it doesn't have the speed. It divides the speed by 4. So it's much stronger in the sense that everything outspeeds you once you're paralyzed. Though there are specific things about the paralysis that that will be revealed later. So yeah, for the moment, just remind that paralysis divide the speed by 4.
Yeah.
So as mentioned, yeah, Mew is revealed as a Swords Dance user. And it reveals, this is another interesting thing, because even though it uses Swords Dance, the recent trend in RBY Ubers is to use Thunder Wave on Mew too. So why Thunderwave over another attacking move? Well, that's because the combined chance of not attacking due to the full paralysis and well, the bulk of Mew combined with the accumulation of Swords Dance makes Mew very, very, very hard to break, and actually it enhances the chance that Mew breaks its target if its target is paralyzed.
So it has Sword Stand, Recover, Thunder Wave, and what would be the attacking move?
And yeah, this is where things get funky, because well, Mew has a lot of different options as a last move. It can be Body Slam, it can be Earthquake, it can be Rock Slide. Usually, because if you use Thunder Wave, you want to use Earthquake because it's a high BP move. And well, the fact that you don't hit Executor for spell effective damage is not very, very problematic, because you can cover it with your other mons, especially with Mewtwo. As mentioned, yeah, you can run Ice Beam on Mewtwo and call it a day. Also, yeah, so something interesting happens now. When you paralyze your opponents and use a setup moves, which happen on turn 15, there's something called paralysis reapplication that happened. It means that paralysis actually happened twice in the calculation of the speed stats of the opposing Mew. This is something very weird and unique to the first generation, but it means that Torchic's Mew will always outrun the opposing SaDiSTiCNarwhal's Mew at this point of the game, because it's used Swords Dance.
What? I.
Yeah.
That's.
Yeah, this is a very, very specific. Interaction. Also, yeah, we just saw something interesting. As you can see, on turn 17, Mew just critically hit the SaDiSTiCNarwhal's Mew, but it only dealt 39% of health. That's because when you critically hit in RBY, you simply deal twice the amount of damage of a normal hit with no boosts, and no drawbacks. So it
all
means
the
that
boosts
if
are ignored.
all
Not only.
boosts are ignored, in fact, yeah, even boosts and even drops from burn is also ignored in fact. So as mentioned, yeah, the paralysis of dividing the defense by 4 times means that Mew is super slow. Okay, this is interesting. Snorlax is very rarely seen using Blizzard in Ubers. This is a very rare options. So I think it caught SaDiSTiCNarwhal off guard, because it was expecting a more common set with Earthquake.
What is the Blizzard used for exactly?
Well, it's exactly used for Rhydon. It's used to damage Rhydon for more damage than Earthquake, because Rhydon has a very low special stat.
Shall I skip a few turns here or never mind?
Okay, so yeah, at the moment, Torchic is positioned to set it up, and it just needs to, click Psychic at the moment. So yeah, as you can see, the critical, it's actually lowered the damage output of Mewtwo, and the no or crits Psychic dealt a lot of damage to Chansey, almost when it KOing it.
So how does the damage formula work here? Because if
It's kind of the same as the recent gens. The difference is that there's only one statistic for both special attack and special defense for both Pokemon, which is the special stats.
so
So
Chansey doesn't have a lot of
So Chansey not only has lower special defense, but also lowered special attack.
It takes very little damage from that.
Okay, one last thing that should be noticed now is that in RBY, the special stats is actually the stats are capped at a maximum of 999. So at the moment, with 4 boosts in special, Mewtwo is at 999 special, but Slowbro had to go to +6 to actually reach 999.
Both are at max special right now.
Yeah.
Are there like overflow stuff?
Yeah, but the overflow is pretty bizarre, so I will only go to explain it if it happens, but if it doesn't happen, let's not complicate it.
Does rest not have the set amount of 2 turns here?
Actually, yeah. So rest happen, then you have 1 turn to sleep, and then 1 turn to wake up. But in fact, yeah, it happen. It lasts 2 turns in the end.
Alright, yeah. So Torchic wants to get freeze here and basically disable the Slowbro that way, I would assume. And
also, one thing, without explaining too much, overflow can happen if you use amnesia just after you been lowered your special attack. So Narwhal is forced to stay at +5 and can't use another amnesia before being dropped to +4.
so for anyone wondering what overflow means, if a number reaches a certain height, I mean, I think it's like some power of 2, then it will start from the beginning again because the bits aren't able to save number as big as that.
Exactly. Well, in RBY it's not a power of 2, it's 999, but yeah, it's basically the same. Okay, so Torchic switched out, well, expecting, a rest, and caught the rest, so Rhydon can come in for free. So now we have the full team revealed for both sides, and Torchic got a really lucky crit now, because it can, Slowbro out. Well, actually, Narwhal actually decided to sacrifice Slowbro.
There they go again.
Well, this is a common scenario in RBY because Mewtwo is so good that it's only reliable check is itself. But the thing is, SaDiSTiCNarwhal's Mewtwo is not statused, so it can be freezed, and this is what Torchic tries to get right now.
Yeah. Only two. Oh, there's
And
a
he
freeze.
got it, actually.
With the third last Ice Beam. So at this point, it would seem like this is game over for Narwhal.
This is a very. I think that it's impossible to recover at this point. Unless he gets, out of the world luck. But yeah, the situation is basically impossible to recover at this point.
Yeah.
And this is a win for Torchic because as mentioned, there's only Chansey left, and Chansey can't really hit Rhydon. So yeah, it was only a matter of Torchic switching in Rhydon and clicking Earthquake over and over again.
Alright, which game shall we watch next?
I think the third and the last game of Torchic versus SaDiSTiCNarwhal is good.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was a first game that we didn't show.
Yeah, we haven't mentioned it before, but this was the second game of their set. The RBY matches are always played in best of threes. Could you maybe explain why that is?
In which SaDiSTiCNarwhal won. So the third game starts with Gengar, which is another sleeper, versus Hypno, which is also a sleeper, but a much more uncommon sleeper because it's slower. Usually, Hypno is used because it's a bulky psychic type, which is pretty rare in RBY. I mean, on the physical side. And so Hypno as the hypnosis, so it's pretty good as a sleeper, though it's slow and slower than Gengar.
So what's the benefit of getting Hypno over Exeggutor?
Well, what's the benefit? I would say that Hypno has access to Seismic Toss and the Thunder Wave, which are both something that Exeggutor would like to get. But yeah, Hypno is very, very rare, and usually Exeggutor is better as a lead, I would say.
And also, Gengar doesn't have any ghost type attacks to hit Psychic super effectively, right? Lick is the only ghost type move in Gen 1.
In Gen 1, the only single one ghost type attack that exists is Lick. And due to a bug, ghost type attacks are actually ineffective against psychic types. So the only weakness to psychic types is bug type attacks. except for actually I lied when I said there was only one ghost type attack. There's two ghost type attacks. There's also Nightshade,
which
but
doesn't
this
do.
move doesn't check the opponent type, so it's effectively typeless.
Yeah, I believe the only bug type move is Pin Missile or whatever
Yeah,
the special move, signature move of Beedrill was called.
yeah. There's Pin Missile and Twin Needle, but both are very low base power moves. There are no good bug type attacks, actually.
Yeah. So, SaDiSTiCNarwhal just won the lead matchup
Yeah.
basically because he had the hypnosis.
Yeah, exactly.
Now the hypnosis useless, and this is like a 5v6.
Yeah, exactly.
So what is Torchic trying to do here?
I think Torchic is trying to weaken Gengar slowly but surely because it doesn't have really good options to take it down. Okay, so here comes Snorlax. Snorlax is actually a very, very good Pokemon in the tier. It's probably the third best Pokemon in RBY Ubers. It's a physical attacker, and most of the time it's used with 4 attacking moves with the combination of Body Slam, Hyper Beam, Earthquake, and Self-Destruct, which acts like a weakened version of Explosion. And yeah, Snorlax is very threatening because it's one of the best physical attacker in the tier, but also it can't be taken down by one Psychic from Mewtwo like ever when it has at full. Even a +4 Mewtwo can't one-hit KO Snorlax, so it's always a force to reckon with.
Do they usually run Rest as a recovery move here?
It's not that common in in Ubers. Most of the time, Snorlax is seen, as I said, as a very offensive and aggressive attacker. So Rest exists, but it's not that common. So once again, Torchic seem to reveal that it doesn't have a second attacking move on Mew, so this is why Zapdos can actually wall this Mew.
So, since there's once again one of these mirrors going on, I have been wondering how's the creativity in the team builder looking with so much less options as to what you could use for your team or what you could change. I mean, there are also no EVs, no natures, no abilities.
The creativity in RBY Ubers is obviously. I can't exactly say that the tier is creative. There are inventions in the tier, but the evolution of the tier is at a much slower pace. I mean, when I started to play RBY Ubers, which was approximately 3 years ago, Thunderwave Mew was nowhere to be seen. It was absolutely non-existent. But it was an invention that happens around, I think, around 2022 and 2023. And yeah, so the tier has, very important target. And this is something interesting that happens now because as you may have seen, you skip too much turns.
I clicked on first turn there instead of previous turn.
So what happened there is that Mew was actually baiting for an explosion, not because it didn't have an attacking move for Zapdos, but because it wanted to KO the opposing Mew. Like I said, this is something I didn't mention, but Explosion is actually a viable option on Mew because it can, when it KO basically everything once it is set up at +2.
Yeah, I believe it's also played on Mew and GSC, but I'm not too versed in the tier there as well. So you also mentioned that Mew and Mewtwo are of course mandatory on every team. How much do they change the dynamic of the game compared to the RBY OU tier, if you have any knowledge of that?
Well, as I mentioned, there are mandatory picks in RBY Ubers. Well, obviously you have to have a dedicated strategy to take down the opposing Mewtwo and opposing Mew. You can't play the tier without having several options to take down Mew. So it comes in the form of Paras. It comes in the form of status in general, with paralysis and in freeze in particular. It comes with physical attackers being very good in the tier because Mewtwo obviously can set up on the special side, but at much rarer frequency it's set up on the physical side. And yeah, it's also come with the popularity of self-destruct and explosion user, because these threats can, or if not when it KO Mewtwo, they can at least put it in very critical range and put it in a range where it can be KO'd by another attacker.
Yeah, all right. So which
and
game?
I think it can be interesting to hover your mouse on the Mewtwo of SaDiSTiCNarwhal, because, well, it got frozen on a precedent turn. I think we missed it, actually.
Yeah, we didn't mention it this time around. I think, yeah, it was frozen a while ago.
Yeah.
Right here.
Yeah, so this is why it switched out, and yeah, I think it sealed the game basically.
Yeah, once again. So since we have seen how strong Freeze is in 2 games in a row here, what is the reason to run Thunderbolt over Ice Beam on Mewtwo?
Well, Thunderbolt is very good because the first thing is it has much higher PP. It's 16 PP of Ice Beam compared to 24 on Thunderbolt, which can be good if you end up in a Mewtwo war. The situation where 2 Mewtwo face each other's. Also, what is good is that you hit water types for super effective damage, which can otherwise be very annoying to deal with, especially slow bro, as you may have seen in the precedent game.
So yeah, even though freeze is very very good, I can't deny that. Thunderbolt is also very good and has real usage.
Alright. So, which game shall we?
I think we
Watch
can
next then.
switch to the CollectorEly, the first, not the first.
I don't remember. I think the first game was okay.
Okay.
Let me check quickly. Yeah. This game, yeah, it's the good game. So, so at the preview, so Ellie starts with Chansey lead against Executor. Chansey is once again not very common as a lead, mostly because it is kind of slow as a sleeper. Even though it's very very bulky on the special side, compared to Executor, which is not as bulky, but it's faster and it's quite hard with its psychic type attacks.
So it's safe to assume that the Chansey here is used for roll compression, maybe.
Yeah, definitely.
Alright. Sing still has 55 accuracy in RBY.
Yes.
Okay. So not very reliable, I would think.
Not exactly reliable, but due to Chansey immense bulk, it's okay because it can take several hits and still click Sing reliably due to how bulky it is on the special side.
Yeah. That's
so
very
something happened. So this is something very unfortunate for the first few turns, because explosion usually never KO at this range. Only a critical hit can actually KO Executor with its own explosion at this range.
So sleep powder miss into stun spore hits and then explosion crit. That's
very unfortunate.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a very interesting. Okay, so a few things are to mention. Why did Snorlax clicked counter? That's weird things, but counter actually works very differently compared to recent gens in RBY. Actually, it only works for normal and fighting type attacks, and there's a very weird mechanic around counter that actually can use an opposing explosion as the damage of this turn. If Mewtwo didn't stay in, it would have used the precedent explosion as the damage. So it would have been actually a one-hit KO on anything that switched in.
So you're saying if the Mewtwo had switched out of the Snorlax, the counter would have gotten the damage of the explosion the Executor used in the previous turn and doubled that.
Yeah, exactly, and basically KO'd anything coming in because at this range it's even a KO on Chansey.
So it would assume that this is like the only reason to run it. Maybe also opposing Snorlax and Tauros then. But
yeah, actually counter is used for the opposing Snorlax and also for Tauros. It's a very good option on Snorlax because it can take many physical moves.
So
And this is also interesting because Mewtwo doesn't use Thunderwave a lot. It can actually reveal that it's self-destruct Mewtwo, a not so common set for Mewtwo, which, well, trades Amnesia and its potential to sweep for more breaking power against the opposing Mewtwo.
So C-Town is putting a lot of value in the other Pokemon used here.
Yeah.
Okay. Counter still has a negative priority, right? Or
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cloyster. What is Cloyster used for?
Well, Cloyster is mostly used because it has access to Clump, one of the trapping ability, which can disable the opposing moves and deal damage.
So this Mewtwo wasn't self-destruct actually, but Amnesia and Ice Beam, and the last move is then either Recover or Psychic.
Well, we don't know, but it's safe to assume it can be anything between Recover and self-destruct, actually.
So an interesting thing to mention also, it's like we have more or less implied it. The reason we're seeing so many psychic types here in this generation is because there is nothing that really holds up to psychic types like in later generations. Steel and Dark were only added later, so Psychic is pretty much the only resist to itself.
Okay, this is an interesting thing. Well, Cloyster revealed it has Hyper Beam, which is a very, very rare option on Cloyster, which is very only useful against Chansey. And it accepted to let it KO. Okay, so can you pause it?
Yes.
So as I mentioned, Mewtwo can never when it KO Snorlax. So if you put it to turn at the end of turn 35, if you can just put it to yeah. So as you can see, Mewtwo is at, well, not exactly low HP, but it can't take an explosion anymore at this range. So it's either forced to switch out or expect that C-Town will predict that stay in to tank Body Slam and click Psychic. So this is a 50-50 situation.
So, C-Town is in the advantageous position here still.
Yeah, exactly. And C-Town just clicked self-destruct, so if Mewtwo stayed in, it would have been KO'd.
Yeah. It seems to be pretty difficult for Collector to get out of this situation without a lot of hacks, but I think...
And as you can see, stat reapplication works in both sides. So after, well, when it can happen multiple times. So every time you set up, it reapplied this paralysis.
Yeah, it's strange to see Mew outspeeding Mewtwo, with Mewtwo having 30 more base speed, but yeah.
Yeah,
Right. Which game should
and we can go for the third game of the best of three. The second game was very heavily luck determined.
we?
The third game is quite interesting. So we start with a lead Mewtwo. Obviously, if Mewtwo is good in everything it do, it can also be a good lead. And it reveals Blizzard, which is very interesting because it can, when it KO Executor if it gets a critical hit. So it's actually a good counter to Executor lead. And it gets the critical hit.
How high is Mewtwo's crit chance?
Well, Mewtwo has approximately 25% of crit rate.
So every fourth move would be
Yeah.
a crit. Yeah.
Once every fourth move, approximately, yes.
So, what I'm also wondering about, what we have also seen in the previous game, would you say it's pretty easy to snowball lead in this tier, especially with hacks, like anywhere in the game, tipping the scales in one's favor?
The thing is with so there are many things happening right now. So first thing first, it's in RBY, it's actually pretty hard, I would say, to snowball out of control because, well, indeed there are a lot of RNG in all games, but there are as much RNG in the opposing side that there is in your side. So even though there can be bad things happening for your side, there will be also bad things happening in your opponent's side most of the time. So you can definitely recover from a bad start. Like, obviously, starting 5 versus 6 like it happened in this game is definitely not good. But it's not over at all for CollectorEly. The game is definitely not finished yet. And there are a lot of things happening in this game. And the first thing happening here is that Mewtwo revealed it has Barrier, which is a very specific move, but it allowed to set up and beat Mew because it has much more PP than Swords Dance, and it also lower the damage output of Mew to a point where it can't break with any of its moves, except if it has Explosion, obviously. But as I said, Explosion is no more as common as it was back in like 5 years ago.
Yeah. So you're saying this Mewtwo set with Barrier is pretty good against a lot of physical attackers, beats them outright, but then again has a losing matchup into these special attackers, mostly Salamons like opposing Mewtwo, or also stuff like Slowbro.
It can have trouble breaking through special setup sweepers on the special side because it doesn't have the coverage it wants. Like, it doesn't have Thunderbolt for Slowbro, it doesn't have Ice Beam for the opposing Mewtwo. So yeah, it can be hard to break the opposing Sponge on the special side.
Amnesia and Barrier.
Yeah. But the thing is, Zapdos, Mew revealed its whole set, and it can't hit
it can't hit Zapdos, so it's pretty free. But Rhydon is also a complete wall to Zapdos in this generation because Zapdos doesn't have hidden power in this generation.
Does
So
Rhydon run rock moves?
well, it doesn't run a rock move, but it does run options like Leer, Body Slam, and sometimes it runs Rock Slide, but it doesn't need it to beat Zapdos. Because if I remember correctly, Body Slam is a 5-hit KO on Zapdos, and Zapdos can't even, 8-hit KO or something like this.
Yeah. That's also pretty much the first time I've heard of a of a stat decreasing move being used in competitive. I think I've also seen some in GSC over the games, over the matches over the last weeks, but
GSC used a lot of Screech in particular. Okay, so something interesting here is that, well, the opposing Mewtwo revealed it as Blizzard and it revealed it as Psychic. So once again, the threat of it being a self-destruct Mewtwo is high, especially given that C-Town is known for running it. So this is why CollectorEly switched out, even though it was at +4 in defense, because it doesn't want to risk a critical hit self-destruct on its own Mew, which would obviously, when it KO its Mewtwo.
Yeah. I think at that point, after the Mewtwo would have been KO'd, Collector would have had nothing to check the Rhydon at that point.
Rhydon would be a very, very, very hard to check once if Mewtwo is taken down. Yeah, now, as you can see, this is the best thing Zapdos can do to Rhydon. It's a pitiful damage. 9% on Drill Peck.
Yeah, not even 10-hit KO.
Yeah.
Well, I'm also seeing in this generation compared to later generations, there's like no passive damage going on at all. It's just direct damage. Is Toxic a thing in this gen?
Well, the thing is, the passive damage are very pretty much in existence because the only form of passive damage that exists are in the form of burn and poison. And the thing is, in Gen 1, Toxic is transformed into poison when switched out, and poison only deals a pitiful 6% of damage per turn. So basically, it's the worst variant of a burn.
And burn isn't used because fire Pokemon are not very good, I would assume.
And fire moves are bad in general because you don't want to throw out a frozen Pokemon.
Yeah. So you just don't use these because it would mess with or just be straight up worse than the other status effects.
They are very specific. There are very specific situations where you want. Okay, so something important happened here, in the sense that Ellie traded Zapdos for Mewtwo, and it's important because we saw that Mew, the opposing Mew, can't hit Zapdos. So it actually opened a way for C-Town to break CollectorEly team, and Tauros is revealed. So it's actually quite threatening because it's a physical attacker that can definitely mess with C-Town's team.
If I remember correctly, Submission was also the only fighting type move that is used, which is
Yeah,
a pitiful move to be honest. 80 base power fighting type move, which also has recoil
yeah.
compared to the close
And
combats
now-
going around everywhere in the
And
following
now you
gens.
can see CollectorEly actually traded its Mewtwo for C-Town's team.
Oh, and after the explosion, the turn just ends, so it didn't have
Yeah,
a chance to recover.
This is something I didn't mention too, but yeah, once a Pokemon is taken down, the turn ends immediately, whether it be because of a damaging move or because it is self-KO'd like it is with Explosion. But it can also happen due to a recall move like Double Edge.
Yeah. And at this point, I would think it's pretty much over.
It's not over. No, this match is interesting because the game is not over yet, and the late game is very interesting. So as you can see, Mew traded for. Can you pause the game?
Yep.
Yeah. So two things very important happened here. Mew was actually not Thunder Wave this game. It was Explosion, and it baited that it was Thunder Wave, and actually was and actually traded with Zapdos for this because, well, C-Town expected Thunder Wave and switched out on Zapdos.
Yeah.
And yeah, so Explosion happened, and well, obviously taking down Zapdos in one hit. So you can continue.
Yeah.
And at the turn at the following turn, it revealed it had Earthquake and had a critical hit, which instantly, when it KO'd Rhydon. But the thing is, it couldn't KO otherwise. It had to go for the critical hit. So now, if you check C-Town's team, it went from almost winning the game to, well, actually almost losing the game now because it can't anymore. You know, Tauros is as fast as everyone, as everything, and everything is in range of Tauros Body Slam and Hyper Beam.
Yeah, lost
So
3 Pokemon.
It all come down to a duel between CollectorEly, Tauros, and, well, C-Town's Tauros.
Yeah.
And this is one of Tauros War that also happens in RBY OU.
So
Because Tauros is it's a good Pokemon that can, well, end games. And this is exactly what happens.
So you said it revealed that it has Earthquake. Does it normally not run Earthquake or only sometimes?
Actually runs Earthquake, but it had to critically hit Rhydon to actually KO it.
Yeah.
Because it could never be KO'd at this range.
Yeah, but it was pretty good chance, I would say, because it for one had the 20% chance to crit, and then also the 30% chance to get the full para.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, the Tauros War happened, so both Tauros click Body Slam, no crits, so they both click. And now this is the turn where one has to click Hyper Beam and the Speed Tie happen. Yeah, and like CollectorEly said, Speed Tie roll win.
Yeah.
And he gets the Speed Tie. And at this range, it's always a KO. And like I said, when Hyper Beam
make a KO in this generation, well, you don't have the recharge.
Yeah. So
it KO, then Mew comes in, it's in range of Body Slam. The crit obviously don't matter. And well, Mewtwo was in the range of Body Slam too. And it ends the game. And this game was also very important because it was the last game of the series between CollectorEly and C-Town, but also it was the decisive game of the week for my team against C-Town's team. And it allowed us to win the week.
yeah.
So yeah, this game was actually very important.
So completely flipped how the whole match looked in the last 10 turns.
The thing that really changed it all is the explosion on Mew that KO'd Zapdos.
Yeah.
It really opened the game for Tauros to clean.
Yeah.
And obviously Tauros had a bit of luck with the crit on Rhydon,
I
even
think
though
it's-
it also had the chance of full paralysis.
Yeah, maybe I've miscalculated or something, but I think it was pretty much a coin flip. Like 46% for Tauros to get either a crit or a paralysis, but yeah.
Yes, basically it was close to a coin flip, yeah.
So, should we lastly maybe take a look at the games played in week 3 and have some predictions up? I don't know if any of them have been played already.
I'm not sure that these games happened yet. No, I think no games happened yet in week 3 for RBY.
Alright. YBW versus Blazing Dark.
I think the most interesting pairing this week are Torchic versus Unknown Dragon and C-Town versus Cake. All these 4 players are very good. I think YBW is is a newcomer, and Blazing Dark isn't really known for playing RBY Ubers, but maybe I'm underestimating them. Though I've seen YBW is just like I said, he's a newcomer, but I think he's going to perform well in this tour.
So one other interesting thing to know would be how high is like the skill ceiling for this generation.
Well,
Go on.
I think the skill selling is
The issue with RBY is it has unique mechanic and things that no other gens has. So when you start playing the tier, you have to basically relearn the entire game because you have no basic of the tier. Like you can't. You have to manage your luck. You have to manage crits. You have to manage status, even more than in recent gens, and well, things like that. And afterwards, after learning these unique mechanics, there you need to learn how the gen is played, what checks what, how do you handle Mewtwo, how do you handle Mew, etc. So I don't think the skill selling is that high. It's just that the generation is very unique and you need to learn it like a whole new gen, and like if you started the game today, you see what I mean.
Yeah. I think a fitting comparison would be I don't know if a lot of people have these experiences, but for fighting games, if you play a game you a lot and then you go back to an older entry in the series, like Smash would probably be the most prevalent example. playing
Yeah.
Ultimate and then going back to Smash Bros. 64, and you still have these kind of basic gists that are the same, but the game is so different that you really have to, that you for one really get a different feeling out of everything, and also have to have different skills and a lot of specific knowledge.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Alright. Seatown versus Cake, you said that one was going to be one of the most interesting entries.
Yeah. Basically, Seatown is, even though it lost in the precedent series, Seatown is definitely one of the best RBY Ubers player in the tournament, if not the best. So yeah, I definitely expect high level plays from Seatown, and Cake is also kind of a newcomer in the tier. Cake is kind of known for being around in RBY since a lot of time, and has shown very good knowledge of the tier. So I really expect a good match between these two.
Yeah. Then Torchic versus Unknown Dragon, you also mentioned that one.
So yeah, Torchic is also, an excellent player.
Yeah, one of the retainers for the Void Villains.
Yeah, and Unknown Dragon is, the RBY player of the precedent winning team, and has shown very high-level plays too. The overall level in the tier is pretty high. Like I mentioned, the players are all very good overall. So yeah, the tournament is very interesting to see.
Yeah, and lastly, Narwhal versus Collector.
Well, these games actually happened, and the CollectorEly had to be subbed out. So unfortunately, it couldn't happen.
All right. Yeah. I think one thing we haven't really gone into detail about. Could you maybe explain briefly? I know this is all over the place with the explanations, but why RBY is played in a best of 3 format compared to the other tiers?
So there are both historical reasons for that, and also a philosophy of the tier. RBY in general is played in best of 3, whether it be in Ubers or it be in overused or any tier, basically, even in tournaments where it should be in best of 1. Like, for example, one popular tournament that is the Smogon Premier League is a tournament which features all generations in OU, including RBY, and RBY is the exception of being in best of 3. This is this was because RBY was deemed to be too luck reliant at the time. So this is why RBY was set in best of 3, and also because basically building a team was considered also easier in RBY when it was when this rule was set. We're speaking about many years ago. This rule was, if I remember correctly, set in 2010. So these are the historical reason of why RBY is played in BO3, but the reason now that RBY is also played in best of 3 is because, the players actually prefer to play in best of 3. They consider that there are more skill expression by playing it in best of 3 than there are in best of 1. And basically the whole player base of the RBY tiers support the fact of playing in best of 3.
Yeah, I've also heard a few other tiers speaking out about wanting to play best of 3s.
Yeah.
because it's generally a more competitive format with the best player usually coming out on top compared to a player being able to get lucky play or some other form of advantage in a single game and just running away with it.
Yeah, this is something that has been pushed by some players to get best of 3 in other formats, though it hasn't reached a conclusion for other tiers. But yeah, there have been support for that for other tiers, in particular in DPP.
Yeah. Alright, but I think that would pretty much be the end of it. Thank you so much for being here today with me, Eledyr. And tomorrow,
You're welcome.
Yeah, tomorrow we are probably going to record a more general recap of week 2. So can also be excited for that. And with that, goodbye.
Goodbye.